Hello everyone and welcome to my channel, The DIY Crafty Muse. If you're new to my channel, my name is Vicki and I do DIY, low-cost DIYs for your home that look high-end. Now, I'm going to be focused on some holiday DIYs, but I will also be focused today on something that you have probably passed 1,000 times at the Dollar Tree and you maybe picked up one for your kitchen, but I'm going to show you about 5 to 6 different projects that you can make with this simple mat. My video is going to be a little bit longer today, so I hope you hang in there for the very end, because I've got so many great things to share with you. Okay, so for every single one of these DIYs, we're going to use these chopping mats from the Dollar Tree. So if you're not familiar with where they're at, they're usually back in the kitchen section. All right, for this next part, so I've included a bonus hack or a bonus DIY. I picked up these, well, one is a Lazy Susan, and the other two are the tiered trays from the Target Dollar Spot. Today's date is November 30th, 2021, so if you're watching this around that time, they should still have some of these online, as well as some stores might have them in store as well. But I bought this set. I actually wanted to stack these. I'm just kind of showing you in the video how I was going to do this. But I wanted to stack these for that tiered tray effect, so it's a little bit taller, and then each of these tiered tray parts actually move on their own. So I wanted to be able to kind of swivel those around. I'm using that Lazy Susan bottom tray to kind of trace out my bottom piece. Since I want to use this tiered tray throughout the entire year, I am going to use these chopping mats to create some designs that sit on each of these tiers, so I can give it that Christmas feel, and then be able to remove it when the holiday season's over. I'll continue to trace and cut until I have all 3 tiers cut out. For the top 2 tiers, because there's going to be, there's like a little metal rod that goes between the 2 top tiers, I am going to, once I get these cut, I'm going to actually cut down one side of the circle just so I can slip it around and create kind of like a little hole in the center there. So it goes around that little metal bar and I can get it on and off with ease. I lost some footage here for this next part, but I went onto Cricut Design Space and I found a circle design that said Merry Christmas, and I just measured the top tier and then made sure that that circumference would fit around that top circle there. And then of course I used the weeding tool as well as some transfer tape to get that stuck on that chopping mat. For the bottom tray, I am actually going to use some leftover vinyl letters or words that I had used in one of the DIYs that I've got at the end of this video, where I make some ornaments. So it's the faux acrylic ornaments. And because I had some of these leftover letters, I wanted to reuse these. You could print out new letters, and if you don't have a Cricut, you could also do this. You could trace this with a Sharpie. So I know I've done that in other videos. I actually have that as a part of the acrylic ornaments later on. So if you're not quite sure how to do that tracing, just wait until the very end and watch that part, and I'll show you how you can trace some of these letters with the Sharpie, and it comes out just as nice. So for this next part, I'm going to work on the next tray or tier, and most of my tier trays, they have kind of an edge around each of the layers, whether it's a 2-tiered tray or a 3-tiered tray. So for this next piece, I kind of wanted to create that. It's not going to be a faux edge, but it is going to be kind of a barrier for some of the stuff that I'm going to put on here. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do for some of the other holidays or when it's just plain, but for Christmas I had these red jingle bells and I thought it would be perfect. So I'm just getting those spaced out so I can see how many I'll need there, and then I'm going to simply glue those down. Most of the items on the tiered tray that I'm going to be putting on this, it's going to be going in my kitchen, are going to be winter themed. So I thought this was a good way that I could add some Christmas to it, and then once Christmas was over, I can remove those little layers and then it's ready for the winter. I love how these turned out. I'm going to be able to keep that winter decor up just simply by removing these Christmas sheets and storing them, and I cannot wait to do the next holiday for this. Let me know what you think in comments. For this next DIY, I'm going to be using this chopping mat hack, and I'm also going to combine it with the pizza pan hack. So if you haven't seen this, this is a great hack for using Dollar Tree pizza pans to make the beautiful rounds that you see on the front door. You can add these to wreaths. You can pretty much do, I mean, there's a ton of things you can do with this. To get started, I'm going to use a little bit of my white chalk paint, and I'm going to give this pizza pan a really good coat of chalk paint. Depending on how thick you put that first coat on, I recommend doing a second coat, or at least going back and touching up any of the spots that look a little bit thinner. You can go for a distressed look. I actually, later on, I add some antique wax. I did 2 of these because I wanted to see how these chopping mats would look up against the plain white as well as the antiquing wax. But just make sure you have a good coat on that pizza pan. Similar to the last project, we're just going to use the pizza pan. This time, because it has that lip, I'm just flipping that pizza pan over and I'm going to trace around the inside circle of this pizza pan. Now that we've got that chopping mat cut out, we're going to work on the positioning of the piece as well as a few of the designs. So I measured out how wide that was, and then I used my Cricut and printed out the word believe. Now I do another one later with Charcuterie. Again, you can do this. You can do some tracing with Sharpie, right? Just print something out on paper from your printer and then use your Sharpie to kind of go over that word because again, these mats are see-through or kind of that frosted look, and you're going to be doing this right on top, so it'll come out just fine. Another way you could add a design is you could use a chalk pen and something, or I don't know if I would recommend the dry erase marker, just because if it were to get wet, it might create, some issues, but you could use a chalk pen. Again, one of the great things behind this is that you can swap these chopping mats out, right? But I guess if you're using the chopping mat as just the piece where you can draw on it and then erase it, that's another hack too. Let me know in comments if you end up doing something like that. Now that we've got our first design here, we're gonna work on a bow. Usually you'll see like a bow or some sort of design up at the top of these rounds. So since this is metal, and I have worked with some metal surfaces before. Charcuterie, they used to have some metal frames, and I used to do metal rounds as well. And I used to create magnets. So you'd put a design on it, and then you can also use these magnets to kind of give it this 3D effect. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm using 2 chalk chips. I'll link them below in the description. They are from Charcuterie. You can get those. But you could get a coaster. You could cut this out of cardboard. I mean, you could get creative and using whatever you've got on hand. But essentially, this little round piece is going to give us the surface where we can attach some of our greenery as well as the bow. What I'm doing now, I'm just kind of placing the magnets. I've fallen, into this trap before where I've glued magnets down and it was the wrong way. I know that sounds weird, but sometimes there's this polarizing effect with magnets and they don't necessarily attract. They repel, and so just making sure that I'm gluing them on the right way. I put them on that metal round and then glued, or use that gel super glue from the Dollar Tree and attach those to that little circle. Picked up this stem from Michael's last year after Christmas. It was like 50% off. I think it was like $5, but you can see you can get a lot out of that. But if you don't have any greenery on hand, you can go to the Dollar Tree, pick up a few Christmas greenery picks, and those will work just fine too. Because I'm going to be gluing this, I'm wrapping these with twine. I have a couple pieces that I'm kind of sticking together, but I found when I wrap them with twine, it actually gives them a little bit more surface to stick. So when I go to use the the glue gun, and to attach these to that little round chalk chip, it just has a little bit more surface and it sticks a little bit better. I'm going to repeat this process. This time I'm going to use a little bit of lamb's ear. Again, I got this on clearance last year. I try to pick up my greenery whenever it goes on sale, but because I'm going to be making 2 of these little magnetic bows or accessories for these pizza pan chopping mat rounds, I am going to do the same thing for this lamb's ear, just kind of glue it down, use a little bit of that twine so we can get started on both bows. Okay, for the actual bow, I am not a bow genius by any means. It took me years and many visits to Pinterest to learn how to make these simple bows. Essentially, you do kind of the ribbon, like the awareness ribbon, and kind of pinch there in that center, use a little bit of twine and tie that around so you have a bow. Now, I am going to mix this with, I use this more traditional bow, and then I use more of like a ribbon bow where there's no actual loops at all. It's just cut ribbon or burlap that you kind of dovetail, and then again using that same twine in the center, you kind of pinch it together. So I'm going to do these both ways. for the burlap, they do have a burlap ribbon that is just like the 2 inches wide. I had some 6-inch wide burlap ribbon on hand, so I'm just taking that and cutting it in half. But again, use what you've got on hand or what you can get at the Dollar Tree or someplace else. All right, now that we've got those bows for the most part done, I have not attached that greenery yet. I'm actually going to, I don't know, sometimes I go out of order or I just kind of stop one thing and move on to the next thing. But I'm going to put these to the side here, and then I'm going to clean up my station a little bit because it was getting pretty messy there. And I'm going to work on the hanger. So in order to hang this metal round up, I'm just going to use some wood beads. I picked up these. I saw these on Amazon. I thought they were so cute because they came with the little buffalo check beads as well. It does have kind of a mixture of the different colors, including some of the wood beads. But I'll link that below in the description box if you're interested. But I set up my pattern there, and now I'm going to use a little bit of glue so I can thread that twine through each of these beads. Now once I get this done, I'm actually going to set this aside once again, and we're going to work on another chopping mat for one of the, again, the whole idea is to kind of switch these out. So I'm going to work on the next one. This time I'm not using a Cricut. I'm going to use some Couture. If you're not familiar with the product, I am a designer. You don't have to be a designer to purchase some of this stuff. I'll link some of the materials I'm using today down in the description box below, as well as some more information. So one thing you need to know about using these, again, it's like a sticker. It's a silk screen sticker. So you've got to fuzz it pretty good, especially when you're going to put it on something like this surface where it's pretty flat and has high potential to stick. You don't want to tug on that. Again, the design part is silk screen, so if you pull too hard, it can kind of warp the transfer. If you take great care of these, you're going to be able to use these over and over again. One thing I'm also doing a little bit different with this is I am using ink. Now, you could use paint, you can use whatever you want. I have found these transfers hold up pretty good with paint and other things, but I wanted to use this color and I only had it in, I think it's eucalyptus. I only had it in ink. The one thing that you'll need to know about ink if you do it this way is you need to make sure that it dries for a while. It usually takes like 350 degrees in order to cure, but because we can't put plastic in the oven or use our heat gun, we're just going to kind of leave it and let it to dry on its own. We're back to the bows. So now I am going to take my glue gun and I'm going to attach that greenery as well as the bows. I'm going to get that, I put kind of a pretty big blob. I don't know if you could see that, but I'm going to get that attached to those little chalk chips that have the magnets on the other side. And we're going to get that glued down nice and tight and stuck. And then we're going to let that dry, let that glue set for a little bit. Okay, so for this next piece, we have to attach our hanger to this metal round. Now, you could do a bunch of glue, you know, that is something that you could do. I am not going to do it that way because it's got that magnetic piece. My fear was it's going to be a little bit too heavy, but if you do this and you end up gluing it, maybe using a little bit of tape, let me know. I am using this, it's a hole punch, but it's called a crocodile. I don't know if you've ever used that before, but it's like a hole punch, but it goes through pretty thick wood, and it does go through this metal super easy. This metal it's not very thick, so it went through just fine. I'm not quite sure how it would work on something a little bit thicker that was metal, but I'll link that. It's called a crocodile. Again, you can use it. It's got like a tool there for the hole punch. It's got a smaller one and a larger one, and then you can use it for, what is it, rivets? I can't remember what those things are called, but like essentially like putting on buttons and like working with leather. But I'll put the description below, the link to it, so you can get one if you want it. All right, so here's the magic, right? I was testing to make sure. I put 3 of those smaller magnets on the back of that chalk chip. So I just wanted to make sure that it worked okay and was able to stick both the chopping mat and hold that bow on there. So when I was looking at this, so this next part, I actually, I wanted something to kind of cover or at least add to that bottom part. That bottom part just looked a little bit plain to me, so I ended up grabbing some Dollar Tree jingle bells as well as 3 of those earlier red jingle bells that I used, glued those together. Actually, I kind of tied them together and glued them together, and then added a little piece of greenery, and I glued all of that together and then also added some magnets. Okay, so I have to admit, I think I was most excited about this one just because I can remove those chopping mats and switch out the design. I can just put this up on my front door and then switch it out as needed. And, you know, I don't have to worry about storing a whole bunch of these pizza trays or the wood rounds. So let me know what you think. I did also include, I did a second one where I used the antiquing wax to kind of show how that looks when you have that stripe across there. I actually plan on giving this as a gift to somebody, so I won't mention who on the video just in case they're watching. But I think that these turned out so cute. Let me know what you think in comments. If you've made it to DIY 3, thank you so much for sitting with me and going through all these different projects. I appreciate you spending part of your day here. I'm excited to bring you this next project as well. I think this would be perfect, especially for a family with little kiddos. You've seen these before. It's the Santa treats and reindeer treats. Well, we're gonna do that same design and we're gonna add it to one of these chopping mats. So you can add this to a tray. You could use this on your regular everyday placemats, so you don't have to worry about those getting messy. You could just put them straight on your table. I think this would be such a cute idea that you could actually use this leading up to Christmas Eve, right? Where you could place, especially for those littles, where you could put their food, in these little boxes. So for this first one, I did use the Cricut to cut out and print out some of the Cricut vinyl. And I did do a reverse image. So if you're familiar with the Cricut, you're just going to simply, I use one of the Cricut designs for this. I tweaked it maybe just a little bit, but I just sized it to that chopping mat. And then when you go to cut the vinyl, you're just going to make sure that you click that mirror the image, because we're going to put this on the back side. These chopping mats kind of have a not soft, but a slick or a smooth surface, and then the underneath part is a little bit rougher. So that's the part I wanted to put this vinyl on, because I think the top part would just make it a little bit easier to wipe it down with that smooth surface. So again, mirroring that image, so it's going to look backwards when we put this on, but when you flip it over, it's going to read the right way, and then you don't have to worry about any messes, any spills. You do want to hand wash these because of that vinyl, but it will be a little bit more wear and tear resistant because you're not constantly wiping that vinyl. You'll just be wiping that smooth surface on the front. If you do not have a Cricut, don't worry. Again, you can use some chalk pens on this. I'm going to use some of the leftover vinyl for the next one. So the inside of that circle and those squares, I'm going to use those to kind of create the space on the back of this. You could put, I mean, gosh, you could use some black duct tape. You could go and get some contact paper from the Dollar Tree. There's a variety of things that you can use here to put on that back part. They also have the little chalk stickers that they have at the Dollar Tree. So there's a couple things you can do here. So again, this is, if you don't have a Cricut, just simply create those circles and those boxes with something, and then use a chalk pen and write that on the front. All right, so this next project is not really a project, it's more of a tip. I use a lot of trays to serve. I made these trays last year for some family members, and I don't want to put food directly in those trays. So I just cut down some of these chopping mats, and then for like charcuterie boards or just putting some snacks on there, use a chalk pen, make sure it's non-toxic, and then you can just put that food on it, so that way it's labeled. I love how these turned out. I think these are going to be great for gifts this year as well. So even if you don't need this for your own home, these would be great for a gifting idea. Let me know what you think in comments. Oh my gosh, you guys, you made it. You've lasted so long. Thank you so much for spending so much of your day with me. We're finally getting it into our last project using these chopping mats. And well, I can't say it's our last because I'm hoping to come up with a few more ideas, but this is the final project for this video. I have actually put together a full video on these faux acrylic ornaments. As you can see, I used both my Cricut as well as some other ways of creating these faux acrylic ornaments. I used some wrapping paper, we did some tracing with a Sharpie, and I think that these turned out great. I put them on my tree. These are the first ornaments to go on, and I think that they turned out so cute. And you know, I don't think anybody's going to be able to figure out these are not those real acrylic ornaments. So let me know what you think. I'm going to link that video above. Thank you so much for watching this video and hanging in there to the very end. I appreciate your support. If you would be so kind, if you hit that subscribe button, it really helps my channel, as well as it helps if you hit that notification bell so you can see future videos. Oh, and one more thing. If you look at some of these projects and you think to yourself, there's no way I can do that. You can. Just keep watching and keep trying. You got this. I wish y'all could see my Bronco shirt, but it's not in